November 2006. David Hackenberg opened his hives to find 70% of his bees had vanished.
400 hives of bees that were good-looking hives of bees a month before, and most of them were gone.
David rushed several dying colonies to Pennsylvania's acting state beekeeper, Dennis Van Engelsdorp. Dennis now monitors a quarantine of several of the collapsing hives. They're infected with a mysterious syndrome that he says is unlike anything we've experienced before.
Certainly there's evidence that there have been similar collapses. But the collapse we're seeing right now, I've never seen.
When bees become sick, they sacrifice themselves and leave the hive to die to prevent infecting the rest of the colony. But this is a mass evacuation. More and more alarmed beekeepers call, reporting millions of bees disappearing without a trace. Stranger still, the insect raiders that usually invade colonies for honey and pollen leave the hives untouched. Within months, the epidemic reaches truly frightening proportions.
If you look at the numbers, we're talking maybe a third of the bees in the United States have disappeared. That's 800,000 hives of bees.
By early spring, the phenomenon has a name: colony collapse disorder, CCD.
A colony has CCD when we see a rapid loss of the adult population, and what we're seeing is just that younger and younger adult bees are leaving the colony to die away from the colony. So this colony is really at its last stages. I would imagine in a week or so, we'll probably only find the queen in this colony surrounded by just sort of a mitt full of bees.
As CCD wipes out hives across the U.S., reports of similar mass bee losses pour in from overseas. Bees vanish in Italy, Poland, Portugal, in Central and South America. In Croatia, beekeepers claim that as many as 5 million bees disappeared in less than 48 hours. The disappearing of the bees captivates the public, as the media prints a parade of speculation about what could be causing the crisis. The first to grab headlines is a story that cell phones are interfering with the bees' navigation.
The cell phone theory stemmed from an ambiguous quote in a British paper. The guy who did the research in Germany on this cell phone, he actually put just a cordless phone in a colony and rang it, and it was a very badly designed study, and he's retracted all statements. But that really took wings.
The next suspect is an old but deadly enemy of the bee, a mite called Varroa destructor, which killed off half the honeybees in the United States in the 1980s. But this time, something is very different.
With mites, you got bees crawling around the ground that the mites have attacked. Here we didn't have any bees. There's no dead bodies out in the ground. The bees have flew away, disappeared.
It does not appear at this point in time that any one of the known factors could account for colony collapse disorder, because we've never seen this magnitude of a loss before.
Scientists struggle to understand what could cause such a major collapse of one of the most highly organized and complex societies in the animal kingdom. A healthy hive of honeybees functions like a perfect and fluid organism. At the center of all activity is the queen. An egg-laying machine, the queen is actually a slave to her duties, laying up to 2,500 eggs a day. As many as 2 million in her lifetime. The worker bees are all female and make up the bulk of the colony. In a typical hive of 30,000 bees, only about 100 are males, called drones. With oversized eyes and bulky bodies, drones are not equipped to gather pollen or nectar and must rely on the workers to feed them. The invaluable work bees do takes its toll. In the summer, workers only live around 30 days, literally worked to death. But the hive is constantly replenished with new generations of bees, ready to go to work from the moment they hatch. When a bee is 3 weeks old, she becomes a forager and will spend the rest of her short life collecting nectar and pollen. She'll fly up to 3 miles away and, amazingly, always return to the same hive. When she discovers an abundant pollen source, she'll recruit other foragers through a most unusual form of communication, a dance.
She informs the other bees that food is available and that food is in such and such a direction from the hive and is at such and such a distance away from the hive. And those pieces of information, distance and direction, are encoded symbolically in movements and sounds that she produces.
Turn right at 100 feet. Take a left at 50 feet. The waggle dance is the only known symbolic language that exists outside the realm of humans and lower primates.
There's really nothing that compares to the dance language of the honeybee. It stands as one of the 7 wonders of the animal behavior world.
With the onset of CCD, there are fewer dances happening in the hives. Foragers are setting out to search for pollen and simply not coming back. The case of the vanishing bees is at the forefront of a much larger crisis. Not just bees, but all pollinating animals have been disappearing for decades.
Pollinators across the board have suffered from industrialization, urbanization, disruption of habitats, introduction of invasive species. They're experiencing death by 1,000 cuts.
Bees and butterflies don't usually make the headlines, but scientists warn that the steady decline in bees and other pollinators could trigger a crisis bigger and more immediate than global warming.
3/4 of all plants on the planet depend on animals for pollination. They can't reproduce sexually without this animal partnership. So if you look out the window and eliminate 3/4 of what you see, that's a reason to worry.
As the supply of pollinators keeps dwindling, agriculture pushes for ever bigger harvests. In 2006, bee numbers in the U.S. had already fallen so low that for the first time in 80 years, bees had to be imported from abroad. Government officials turned to Australia, where a lucrative bee export industry now regularly ships to the U.S. With the onset of colony collapse disorder, beekeepers desperately rebuild their empty hives with Australian bees. It's a quick fix, but only adds to the cost of the losses.
These losses this year translates into about $450,000 cost to put bees back in the boxes, lost pollination contracts because we're short on bees, lost honey crops. I mean, there's no way that we're going to get back in the black this year. And, we can't take another hit like this.